Evening, everybody, and welcome to the Summit Town Hall. I am your supervisor in the First District, Manu Koenig. We're broadcasting here from the Loma Prieta School. We have a hybrid meeting tonight, and we are focusing on Summit issues. So I rotate this town hall meeting throughout the First District. Generally trying to get one in the Soquel area. We had last month's in Live Oak. Right now we're up at the Summit, and then we'll be going to Happy Valley, De La Viega area soon as well. I'll give a short presentation. We also have our Assistant Director of Community Development and Infrastructure, who leads our County Roads and Transportation Division, Steve Wiesner, here tonight, who will be available to answer questions about roads. We're going to get into plenty about county roads later in the presentation, and then we should have plenty of time to answer your comments and questions. All right, so let's just get started. I thought we'd start on a lighter note, which is something that we did recently at the board to support Santa Cruz Mountain Wineries, which is in our sustainability update, which the board passed at the end of in December of last year. We did include provisions that make it easier for breweries and wineries to have events and build other supporting structures on their property that help out their business. I know that the Santa Cruz Mountains Wine Trail is an important part of the economy up here in the Summit area. So it's exciting to see that move forward. And we also, last year, the voters approved an increase in the transient occupancy taxes for short-term rentals, for vacation rentals like Airbnb and VRBO. And so that'll also create some additional potential funding, which could be used to support things like signage for the Santa Cruz Mountains Wine Trail. This sign that you see on the slide was actually a picture taken from the Santa Clara side of the county line. It's been a bit ironic that the Santa Cruz Mountains Wine Trail is signed on the Santa Clara side, but not at the moment on the Santa Cruz side. So, oh man, so we'll hopefully be able to change that soon. Thank you. Just got some folks filtering in here in the live audience. Yes. I'm happy to come back. So I was saying the sustainability update gives new provisions for breweries and wineries to host events, as well as build supporting structures. Really, because both tourism and agriculture are two twin engines here in the county. That's why that was a focus in the sustainability update, is updating our general plan and county code to really be supportive of that. And as I was also just saying, hopefully we'll have some more funding soon to be able to support extending the wine trail signage here on the Santa Cruz side of the county line. One of the issues that I hear about most frequently for the Summit area is internet access. I know a lot of folks lost internet access during the recent storm events in early January. So we did reach out to Comcast to look at getting them to install backup generators. We're still waiting to hear back from them on what's feasible, both economically and physically. Certainly, I'll work on the county side of things, do whatever we can to make it easier for them to install backup generators if permitting becomes a factor. We put out a survey with the help of Sanjay up here in the mountain community to folks to see how many folks had lost internet during the storms. We heard back from 28 people, and most of them, 22, had lost internet for more than 24 hours. So definitely recognize it's an issue, and we'll be taking steps to try to improve things. One way we're going to do that is through the broadband master plan. We just received about $500,000 from the state California Public Utilities Commission for this master plan. And it is a first step that's required in order to then access more state and federal monies. We basically have to be able to show the state and the feds that we know where the highest areas of need are in our community, and that we're going to smartly invest those dollars as soon as they give them to us in those to close the gap and reach those communities. So this is the first step. We have selected a contractor who's undertaking the master plan. They've been at it now for about 8 months. And one way you can participate is with the speed survey. You can just go to this link, speedsurveyapp.com/surveys/CO-Santa-Cruz. And basically it just runs a speed test on your computer right there. You click a button, just asks you a question about where exactly you're submitting this from and what kind of device. And it's about that simple. And that gives us several data points with which we can help build the broadband master plan, identify the areas where we need to be investing in new infrastructure. So participate today. We also know that during the recent storm events, emergency communications was an issue, and that many folks would have liked to have been hearing more from the county as far as exactly what's going on. The board asked for an evaluation of the current tool we use for emergency communications, which is Code Red. Whether or not that's the best platform, where there's other software tools like Nixle. I know some of the cities in our county use. So we're looking at that as an alternative. Or maybe it's just updating our operating procedures to make sure that we get that information out in a more timely way, or are also integrating all the social media features with whatever software platform we're using. In addition to just evaluating how we use the emergency communications tools, we're also going to have some more people actually behind the communications themselves. Right now, it's primarily our public information officer, Jason Hoppen, who is responsible for all emergency communications, well, all county communications, both in times of emergency and otherwise. But there are a few departments that are hiring new communications officers, including community development and infrastructure, which oversees both roads and planning, as well as our health services agency and human services agency. So that'll also just help get improve communications throughout county services. All right, I'll get into some of the rebuilding stuff now in the wake of the storms that we saw in January. So if you can see here on the map, this is showing how many the different structures throughout the community that were yellow tagged. There's 190 of those. Those are minor or non-structural damage to homes and buildings. And there were 20 red tags, which means that a home is actually structurally unsafe to occupy. I think of the 20 red tags, 19 of them were in the San Lorenzo Valley. We just had one, the Corcoran Lagoon Apartments, which was in the 1st district right by the beach. Very close to the beach, and they had elements of their both foundational piers and parking structure, which made it that those folks had to evacuate. These are really just the numbers we know from either folks calling in and requesting an inspection, or county workers canvassing the areas that were flooded and counting, or first responders referring folks. So as you can see, we don't have any yellow tags or red tags up in this area right around the summit that we know of now, but that's part of why I'm here now, is if there are problems, I'd love to hear from you. So here to check on you guys. At our last meeting, just on Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors basically said that we're going to extend the Recovery Permit Center. That's really the streamlined process that we set up in the wake of the CZU fires. We're going to extend that same process to anyone who's recovering from the recent storms. So this is actually a photo of the basement of the county building, where we've got we've hired a company called Four Leaf to work alongside and also slightly independently of our planning department to be able to really provide hands-on assistance to prepare people's application, help them get everything together, and then submit those applications for permits and rebuilding. So this is now available to folks recovering from the storms as well. You can reach out via email, rpc@santacruzcounty.us, or phone 831-454-5323, or come visit in person at 701 Ocean Street. That's the county government center. In addition to making the recovery permit center available to folks recovering from storm damage, we're also extending the legacy older structures program. Basically that again came about as part of the CZU rebuild process. We realized that anyone with a structure that was built before 1986, we might not have the best records of permits and for the construction of those buildings. So we're basically going to reduce the requirements for rebuilding, even if you don't have all your permitting, all your permits for a legacy structure like that. So if your home was built before 1986, basically we'll cut you some slack. Sorry, yeah, I think we've got folks online. So I've got someone was just asking whether or not we're getting everyone admitted here. Hey, we do have Jamie Seahorn, who's a first district analyst working as a co-facilitator on Zoom. We've had several presentations similar to this with FEMA, and I believe the disaster recovery centers are open for a little bit longer. There's really extensive ones in Watsonville as well as in Felton. But the headlines that you need to know are that the application deadline for FEMA assistance is March 16th this year for storm-related damages. The maximum amount that you could expect to receive from FEMA for their individual and households program is about $41,000. And that goes for road associations as well. We'll try to process these FEMA will process these applications as quickly as possible. So once you apply and reach out to them, we can get a FEMA inspector out there to contact you, set up an appointment within 10 days, and then get out to verify storm-related damages as quickly as possible. Once they do that, funds would be distributed within 7 to 10 days. It's important to note that FEMA cannot duplicate insurance benefits. So if you do have insurance, beginning by filing a claim as your best first step. And then FEMA can help with items that are not insured. And a lot of items typically are not insured, like private access roads, wells, bridges, and septic systems and furnaces. So FEMA is available to help with that. But private road damage, where the road is providing the only access to a home, or homes may be eligible for disaster assistance through FEMA, either as a direct grant or through the Small Business Association as a low interest loan. So if you did experience road damage on your private road, get an application going with FEMA, and it'll get you some assistance. Now, I know a lot of you have been suffering on our county roads since the storm. They were not in the best shape before the storm, and the storm really added insult to injury. I think it's first important to review just how much damage we incurred as a county during these storms. Public Works dealt with 816 dispatch calls over about the 20-day period between New Year's Eve and January 20th. 156 roads were closed and later have been reopened. We had to enter into 29 emergency road contracts to perform emergency fixes for 29 roads. And there are 80 permanently damaged sites throughout the county, which you can see a map of here. In total, we estimate these are this represents about $40 million in road damage countywide. Now, Steve Wiesner, who I mentioned, is on the call. Our Director of Transportation and Roads can speak more to how we've developed this priority system that you see here, the high priority ranking in red, medium priority in orange, and low priority in green. But basically, we do have, of course, limited funds, and have prioritized the repairs to roads in this order. and we'll be working to make those repairs over the coming years. It does take a while, but to plan the repairs, get money from FEMA, and then we match that typically with state money from gas taxes, SB1, and then some local money as well. So typically FEMA will reimburse about 75%. We'll get 12.5% from the state, and then have to match about 12.5% from local money. So we were, before these latest storms, working through the 2016-17 storms, had made it about 2/3 of the way through those repairs. This, of course, adds more on top of that. Just to give you, I mean, I'm sure you've all seen photos of the devastation. I think Glenwood Drive, really, the images of this really drive it home. But you can see some of the emergency repairs that were made here. I think it was about $1.25 million in emergency repairs to this road alone. But a lot of great work and quick action by Public Works throughout the storm events. And of course, after the washouts and slides and other damage that we're clearing, there's also just the potholes that have proliferated all over county roads. We are contracting and setting up a dedicated crew to fill potholes. And the best thing you can do right now, I mean, I know that county road crews have been out to a few different roads in response to citizen reports and started filling potholes in different places. So the best thing you can do if you've got a bunch of potholes on your road is report them. You can do it either by calling the Public Works dispatch line, 831-477-3999, or you can get the My Santa Cruz County app. You can either download it on your phone through the App Store, My Santa Cruz County, or go to cconnect.santacruzcounty.us. And this app is actually, it goes directly to the crews that are out in the field. So even faster than reaching out to me, I have to reach out to staff, and then they'll get it to someone who's in the field. This goes directly to folks in the field. And if you use your phone, or you can either use your computer and put a little pin on the map, or you can use your phone and it'll track your location. And so if you're driving down the road and go, wow, that was a bad pothole, you can pull off on the side of the road and mark that location on the map. So that's really helpful as we look at how to be most efficient with filling these potholes on our 600 miles of county roads. That's all I have for you in way of presentation. We'll take questions now. I just ask that before you ask a question, please make sure your name in Zoom is your actual name. We're not going to call anyone with a name that we can't identify or is generic, just because did have some Zoom bombing at the last meeting, and want to keep the meeting on track for everyone. And if you would like to ask a question, just go ahead and we'll probably start here with folks in the live audience. Then if you're online, just go to the little reactions button at the bottom of your screen and click the raise hand button, and we'll call on you in the order that folks raise their hand. Anyone here in the live audience have questions or comments they want to start with?
Thank you, Manu. This is Frank Cheap. I had heard, I think, from you or staff that the county historically has had near zero budget for road maintenance, and we would sort of wait till there was a disaster, take that money, and then sort of spread it out like peanut butter to help do the other stuff. Has the county changed that? Because I did notice on my last property tax, they do have an assessment for road maintenance, I believe. Is that still the case, or is it still sort of as needed?
Well, for the most part, that's a pretty accurate description. If you see a specific assessment on your property taxes, it could be because your road is part of a CSA, a county service area, which is basically an option for private roads to create an organization that's partially managed by the county, and most importantly, puts an assessment on all the relevant properties taxes so that you can get those funds in, and then the county helps do some of the accounting and will ultimately, I mean, the road association will select the contractor, but then the county would release the funds. So that's probably what you're seeing on your property taxes. It is true that our county roads are pretty chronically underfunded. It's to try to make a long story short, goes back to the way our property tax cookie crumbles. It was fixed after Prop 13 passed. So the county only gets 13 cents on the dollar of your property taxes. The majority, 57%, goes to schools. And so we, as a county with a lot of people living in the unincorporated area and a lot of roads to manage, it basically leaves us with very little money in our general fund to allocate towards roads. The primary funding source we have right now is Measure D that was passed in 2016 for transportation. That is a half-cent sales tax. And that's been providing a lot of those matching funds I mentioned, that 12.5% we do need to come up with. It provides the matching funds to perform those projects. But the long-term picture with county roads, and I'm sure Steve could go into more detail. I see he's got his hand raised, is, really we should be putting in about, I think, $24 million a year in maintenance is the estimate. And we've been able, between local and state monies, really to come up regularly only with about 8. So it is a big problem to solve long-term. And Steve, if you want to add to that, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Manu, Supervisor Koenig, and everyone who's here tonight. Just to add on to that, probably what you're seeing, there is a countywide community service area, which is it's CSA 9D, and we have 3 zones throughout the entire county, and it's $56.40 a year, and that actually does go towards maintaining county roads. It generates just a little shy of $2.7 million a year. So it just pays for a fraction of the road crew that you see out there, fixing the roads. So that is money that we use to actually maintain the roads and keep our crews going.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Frank. Any other questions here in the live audience?
Hi, I have a question.
I don't think is the mic on? Okay.
JB, can you hear me?
I don't think.
We can hear, but it's not very clear.
Hello? Oh, okay. I have a question. So I have 3 children who go to Mountain Elementary School. Old San Jose Highway is basically treated like a highway. A few years ago, we had a near miss with a child almost getting hit. Going into Mountain School from like SoCal Village, there's kind of a blind turn, and also coming the other direction, there's another turn. I would like, and the school would like, either a stop sign, a stoplight, speed bumps, yield signs, because basically at this point, we all feel it's a matter of time before a child gets hit. That's going to make a change. And it's been years of us feeling this way. And I also live like right across the street. Like I live on Alpha Del Lane, which is walking distance to the school, and people are flying. It's 60 miles an hour. And you were just mentioning, I kind of walked in slightly late, but a certain portion of taxes is allocated to the schools. And then a certain portion is allocated to roads. Like the portion that's allocated to schools, could a portion of that be allocated to putting in a stop sign or a stoplight? And then the portion that's allocated to the roads, could a portion of that also, like, could we kind of come together to find a common ground to get something done?
Sure. So, I mean, as far as the funding goes, I mean, great question. I've been out there to Mountain School and looked at, the entrance to the school and of course, San Jose Road. People do drive way too fast. And I'm frequently asking CHP to go out there and issue tickets. So if you ever, I mean, we can always have them do more enforcement. I know there's sort of an unlimited amount is desired.
Even if like parking a vehicle there, I know they do that in certain areas, even if it's not attended, maybe
Yep.
would
And we
bring
can
awareness.
rotate a speed trailer through there as well.
Yes.
The good news is we do have some funding to update SoCal San Jose Road. We specifically got an allocation through some state money recently, and so plans are in the works for an update. And we have looked at what is possible in terms of, you know, traffic calming and improving flow around the school. I'll let Steve speak to the specifics a little bit more. I don't think they were able to put a stoplight or stop sign in there. And Steve, if you want to explain any more about the specifics.
Sure. Yeah, I'm familiar with that area too. We've been working with the school for many years on the issues surrounding pedestrian safety, specifically around the school. I know it's a tough spot. Like you said, there's these two curves coming in from both sides, and it's not that great of a spot for a driveway. You know, at one point we did install a crosswalk out there many years ago, and then more recently we had put in these flashing beacons for folks to use. And it sounds like specifically for someone like, you know, you who's walking from Alphadale, that, you know, and I don't know if those flashers are effective for you or if they're even.
No, so we drive to school.
Yeah.
We don't,
I mean,
there's no,
so-
the safety's just, it's just not safe enough to walk, but
And honestly, that would be my recommendation. I mean, would not recommend that pedestrians walk along the shoulder of SoCal San Jose Road for that very reason. We recognize though that there are circulation issues with the parking lot down at the school. And so we know that folks have been dropping kids off up top and walking them in, and it does create problems. As Manu alluded to, we've looked at adding stop signs there or like a signalized, you know, some type of a signal. And it's just not warranted for the amount of time that the school actually needs that type of control.
it is warranted because it's a safety issue for the children in our community. So it's totally warranted. And I'm pretty passionate about this subject.
Yeah, well, what I would ask you to do is maybe we could have a sort of a breakout conversation with our traffic engineer, and I could help you understand. What I meant warranted was is not technically warranted when we look at the engineering guidelines for the type of traffic we have there and the amount of time that parking lot gets used. And so to have like a set of stop signs
To
out there.
save one child's life is totally worth it. And it's becoming that close all the
Right.
time.
So I guess, I mean, this is probably not the best forum for me to share all of the technical data that we have with you. And so I would just ask that you call our office. I'm happy to engage with you and tell you everything that we know about that location. You know, Public Works' phone number is 831-454-2160. Maybe Jamie will put that in the chat. I would invite you to call my office. Maybe take down my name here, and you can ask for me, and I can I can set up a meeting with our traffic engineer, and we can go over all the issues that you're concerned about. I don't disagree with you, but there are a lot of technical issues surrounding making alterations to a roadway, is what I would say.
Ma'am, what I would say is, first of all, I didn't catch your name, but I'm happy to set up a meeting with you, myself, and Public Works. I think all of us want to make that intersection as safe as possible. You do run into issues with, I mean, both state law, what Steve was saying is, I mean, sometimes we have to have warrants in terms of the amount of traffic coming from the adjacent road into the main road under state law to put in a stop sign. So it's not necessarily just if we want to. There are certain restrictions on when we can or cannot do certain traffic improvements. So, but we're happy to sit down with you and go over it. Like I said, there is an opportunity since there's some funding to update the road, and we do definitely want the intersection to be as safe as possible. Hey, I think check the mic again. I don't.
Can you hear now?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
My name's Robin Porter. A couple of things that came to pass this last. One is if you look at the wind speed up on Loma Prieta, it was 78 miles an hour. And I looked at the gradient of what is a tropical storm versus a Category 1 hurricane, a Category 2 hurricane. And we were actually dead in the middle of Category 1 hurricane. So that's amazing that that District 1 has gone through that. So one of the questions I have is what work is being done on evacuation planning through maybe OR3?
Mhm.
And then the second part of the question is in Santa, well, across the entire state, there's organizations called Cadre. And Cadre is available in Santa Clara County and the Northern Bay. It's all statewide, but there is no Cadre in Santa Cruz County and Monterey County. And I wanted to know if you know, one, what Cadre is, and two, efforts being done to do that. So Cadre is a group that pulls together what are all the resources that are available. So it's like a hotline, I guess is a good way to put it. And they will coordinate, gee, are you food insecure? Do you have road damage? Is there available money from FEMA? And they really help the community that way.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Cadre, but I'll definitely look it up and see how we can bring it to our community as well. As far as evacuation plans, we don't like issue specific evacuation routes ahead of time, because sometimes if there's a fire, for example, it's closed certain roads and it's not safe for people to go and take those roads. We don't want them to think, oh, my evacuation road is just down here. Oops, it's on fire. So what the county does use is a tool called Zone Haven. And you can, if you figure out your zone, a lot of the time we'll issue the evacuation warnings in terms of specific zones, and you can log on to that. I know I was watching it intently throughout the storms. Most of where we saw people being evacuated, of course, was in the flood areas. But I mean, you're right. OR3, the Office of Response, Recovery, and Resilience, is really our runs our emergency operations center and the evacuation plans. If you have any more specific questions about evacuation plans in terms of specific kinds of events, we can get you more details on that.
Right. The biggest thing is we have a lot of new residents here up on the mountain, and we had yet 95033 talk was invaluable because it kind of helped educate the people of the 5 other ways up and down the hill. But it would be nice if that information was easier to access.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, and also President Biden, I didn't hear
I did not get to meet President Biden. They keep his guest list as short as possible. So they literally only invite everyone. He came to visit Aptos and Seacliff Beach. So they just invited the 2nd District Supervisor, Zach Friend, the Mayor of Capitola, Margot Kaiser, and then kind of up there for the overlapping jurisdictions. So Don Addis, Assembly Member, State Senator John Laird, and Jimmy Panetta. Otherwise, you can see how I would quickly create a mob with all the supervisors and all the council members. I had lots of people reaching out to me saying, where are you going to be today? Where's the president going to be? So anyway, for I think logistics purposes, they kept it short. But I did see him, he did fly over my house with his Osprey in attendance and, Marine One. So that was exciting. Okay, seeing no other questions here in the online audience, I'll let our online host, Jamie, call on folks.
Okay, William, you're first. Do you see the option to unmute?
Sure.
Great.
So my question's very brief, although I had one frivolous question, which was, did you get to meet Biden? And I guess that was just answered, but the bummer that you didn't. So just super basic. A lot of folks in the mountains, as you know, Manu, outages are much more frequent here than they are in other parts of the county, in the upper part of your district. And a lot of folks here are self-sufficient in the sense that they have solar, probably in a disproportionate way, certainly generators to a disproportionate extent. But the one kind of Achilles heel, I think, is the ISP. So if you're working from home and it's unsafe, or it's at least it's imprudent to commute over the hill, you may have power in your house, but the clock is ticking. There's a certain amount of hours, and I think it's on a backup battery from like the way like Comcast does it. Like it'll work for 4 hours, blah, blah, blah. I don't know the exact numbers. Perhaps you do. I would love to have visibility into that. But it would seem to me that like whatever like tech that they're using, it could probably be improved. So to the extent that it's 2 hours that their backup battery works, like for Comcast as an example, perhaps it could be upgraded and be 4 hours, blah, blah, blah. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that, because it's just a really, really incredibly practical thing for folks that that devote their energies predominantly over the hill, but would like to be able to be based here when the conditions are rough.
Totally. I hear you well, William, that, internet has essentially become essential infrastructure in the 21st century, and many of us rely upon it to make our living. As I said, I did reach out to Comcast to get them to do some initial assessment of what would be feasible in terms of either putting in a backup generator that can last 48 hours, or whatever it is that we can do. I'll certainly push them to do it. Started doing some community outreach to get data to support making that argument to them, and we'll continue to do so. Maybe it's a piece that something that we need to look at with the broadband master plan as well. It's not just the level of access everywhere, but also the resiliency of that access. So I'll talk to our ISP department about that aspect of the plan. We're just trying to make it easier in general for like even things like cell towers to be built within the mountains. We recently updated our cell tower ordinance at the county to have a defined amount of time that we can before issuing permits for those, and really try to get it down to the essential elements of those permits. So those are some of the ways that we're trying to increase dependability of internet access in the mountains. I hear you loud and clear, though, that we need more resiliency in the time of these disasters.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next is Rashma. Sorry if I did not say your name correctly. Do you see there you go.
Hey, Rockmont.
You did pretty good. Hi, Manu. Just a couple of comments with some of the questions and issues raised, maybe starting from the most recent one. I live on Olive Springs Road, and possibly because of the value of the quarry up at the end of our road, we get a lot of advantages that many of the other rural roads don't get. I know that Xfinity, or Comcast as they are commonly known, they upgraded the battery power to the service to our street. I'm not sure if anybody really requested that, but probably they did. It used to go out in about 2 hours, as I think William shared with his particular road, and they upgraded that about a year ago to 4 hours. And I do have some clients up in mountain areas in the Ben Lomond area, and I know that they have upgraded those areas and actually installed a generator in one of the locations. So they will respond to, I think, to requests for that. So I would encourage you to do that. With regard to traffic issues on Old San Jose Road, we had 5 children in mountain school who all graduated from there, moved on to other things. So we have a vast history of mountain school, and the problem with traffic really developed starting about 8 to 10, 12 years ago, when there were such a bloom out of the big tech industry in the Silicon Valley area, and more people who couldn't find housing, and they had to move to remote rural areas. So they moved into south Santa Cruz County into north Monterey County and even farther. So as almost all of you would know, the traffic issues on Highway 1 become pretty insane in the morning, northbound from Monterey County, and then it just reverses at the end of the day. And the effect on Old San Jose Road began when we had the major storms 10, 12 years ago. And thanks to Google, and I don't say that lightly, they put Old San Jose Road as the major alternative route. So there's much more traffic. I mean, it increased probably 10 times. And that's where the problem lies, because the people who come from Silicon Valley driving long distances, they travel way too fast on Old San Jose Road. And I have talked with the county roads department many times over the years, and they've put signs as you come down the hill and just past Webb's Farm. There are signs that they've had to replace a number of times. Sometimes the travelers in there they hit those signs, they take them off. And between that and Glen Haven, Laurel Glen, there's lots of additional signage, but the people who travel those roads late in the day or early in the day, they're just in a big hurry. They don't pay any attention to the traffic signs. And I'm thinking maybe one of the easiest solutions, it would never work to put some kind of bumpers or stoplights, because it's 7 o'clock in the morning, the quarry starts accepting gravel trucks. And gravel trucks, as you all know, are essential to maintaining the roads in this county. So living here on Olive Springs Road, we're just used to it. We just expect, you hear the first gravel truck in the morning, it's 7 o'clock. And it's not the gravel trucks that are the problem. The problem is that all of the people have to commute up and over the hill and choose Old San Jose Road. They're either running late for work or they're coming home late, they're tired, and they just ignore safety signage, even the ones that say, school ahead. So I'm thinking that the signage that I see on Roberts Lane that leads into Wharf Road in the center part of the village, they have signs that start blinking at you. If you're going over the recommended speed limit, which is typically 25 in that area, the signs start blinking at you. And I think that gets the attention of some people that would otherwise ignore that. So there are some variations that should not cost so much, but I don't know what we can do about it. It wouldn't be practical to have a stop sign or a stoplight out there and near Mountain School.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Rockmont. I hear you. We'll definitely look at options like a blinking speed feedback sign. And I mean, I think you bring up a good point as well, which is a lot of the traffic on SoCal San Jose is folks trying to avoid the traffic on Highway 1. We can't get Google or Waze not to list it as an alternate route. But we are undertaking a mega project on Highway 1. Really, you might have seen the first phases of that just in the last couple of weeks. Some of the trees starting to come down as we make way for a bus on shoulder and auxiliary lane project that's starting between SoCal Drive and going to 41st. And then I will probably also break ground this year going from 41st to State Park Drive. And then ultimately from State Park to Freedom. We have the first couple phases I mentioned are funded. We just received $30 million for that last phase going from State Park to Freedom. And so this will start to make a pretty big impact on traffic on the highway and hopefully encourage people to stay on the main roads rather than flying down SoCal San Jose Road. Ma'am, is there something you wanted to add? Sure. Yeah. So the question was, how much does it cost to put in a stoplight? I mean, I think it varies by location, but I think, it's roughly $1 million. I see Steve nodding, so I think that's about right. All right. Thank you.
We have Lonnie next.
Hi, thank you for the time. There's a couple things I wanted to ask or discuss, one of which I will piggyback on the mom and the Mountain Road conversation, which is both nationally and locally, we have a crisis in terms of our traffic violence. So every 2 to 3 days, we're losing somebody either due to someone getting hit, a pedestrian, a person who's in a wheelchair, or a bicyclist, or they're being sent by life flight to the hospital. It's a very serious crisis, and our county is actually at the top of that crisis scale. So I think that we're at the point now where it's not just the mountain roads, it's the surface streets, it's everywhere. Even on my own road in the last 2 years, traffic is in the 25-mile-an-hour zone, drive 40 to 60 miles an hour. We know that traffic violence has increased across the country, but to meet this traffic violence crisis, we need to up our ante in terms of how we're measuring and meeting that. We know that the safety, when we produce or create infrastructure that addresses the safety of our most vulnerable in our community, and that would mean our kids, our elderly, our people who are disabled in a wheelchair, our cyclists, then we increase safety for everybody. And what we've done with our past infrastructure is it really prioritizes the speed of cars. And so traffic calming measures, we know that work across the country. There are cities that are doing it. We know there's cities in other countries as well that are doing it very effectively around the kinds of infrastructure they use. And so again, this is a national crisis. It's a county crisis. Let's meet that head on with the same level of fervor as the crisis that we're losing our family members to on our streets. The second question, actually, this is more in the question/comment zone, is around Kaiser. Kaiser, of course, is proposing building in an area of zero public transportation, over 1 mile to 1.5 miles, close walk to the nearest bus station, excess parking, and a serious traffic residential bottleneck. We know, for example, there's a pumpkin patch property of about 6 acres for sale right on the bus line. That would be much more appropriate, I think, for a Kaiser-like medical center. But you know, there's a lot to discuss around Kaiser, and I've been looking up meeting times and that sort of thing. I haven't seen them come up, so it would be really good to know the direction that that's going. Thank you.
All right, I can address both those issues. Thank you, Lonnie. First, as far as the increasing issue with traffic safety, I definitely hear you. I mean, I think you know, it seems to be an issue of people more distracted by their cell phones and driving larger cars over the years. I mean, we've seen the vehicle size increase and of course, distracted driving increase as well. So that's definitely, and of course, just a history of optimizing our roads for cars moving as fast as possible and not prioritizing bikes and pedestrians the way many other countries do. We're trying to start to change that. Really where we see, I think the most traffic accidents and even deaths in the unincorporated area is on Soquel Drive. And that's actually why we're undertaking a massive project starting this summer. Most likely we'll break ground on that, but to make the bike lane safer with either greater buffer between the bike lane and the traffic lane, or even a full protected bike lane with bollards to keep people safe there. We're also adding 11 mid-block rapid flashing beacons and on crosswalks on Soquel Drive so that people are more visible, and upgrading a number of closing some sidewalk gaps along Soquel Drive as well. So I mean, you're right, our county is, I think, the 4th worst in the state out of 58 counties if in terms of traffic collisions per capita. So we are working to turn that around, starting with the most dangerous road. And Steve and I talk all the time as far as ways to make incremental improvements whenever we resurface a road and do some basic maintenance. So we took that approach with Thurber Lane this year. which had a routine resurfacing scheduled. And so we took that opportunity to improve the bike lanes there, adding some green paint and actually extending the bike lane further up Thurber Lane. So it's always on our minds, and I'm happy to talk with the other supervisors, and that maybe it's something we would actually consider bringing forward, just so that it's policy that we look at ways to calm traffic whenever it is we do these routine projects. Steve, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, there is. And I just want to let everyone know here, and especially the commenters who are concerned about traffic safety. It's something we, focus on a lot in our department. And as Manu said, we are making incremental improvements as we're able. And then some of these bigger ones, like Manu just mentioned on Soquel Drive. And then in addition, so it really trying to think outside the box. The county actually became a Vision Zero agency towards the end of last summer. So it's a pretty interesting concept that is actually an international nonprofit organization who have been basically going around to a lot of major metropolitan areas all over the world and trying to sell this concept of Vision Zero, which is that we won't accept that there's deaths and serious injuries on our roadways and highways, and that we need to continue to really search for solutions to really limit deaths and serious injuries. And so to that end, we became a Vision Zero agency, and we partnered up with a couple other local agencies, and we wrote a grant to the federal government. This is part of the infrastructure, the Biden infrastructure bill. They made funds available through this program called Safe Streets for All. It's called SS4A. And we just found out this last week that we won this grant. It's nearly $700,000, and what it is, it's a grant for us to create an action plan. And what it does is, what we'll do is we'll hire some consultants to come on board to give an independent, fresh review of our roadways and the areas where the data is showing that we're having a lot of problems. And the idea is that they would then create some concepts to try to make these areas more safe for peds, for everyone, really. It's for motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists, anybody using our roadways. And we basically create a list of high priority projects, and then we would be able to start going after implementation grants to reconfigure some of these roadways. And so, us in Public Works admitting that we don't have all the ideas, we don't have all the tools necessarily available to us, but we're open-minded enough to say, look, we'd like folks to come in and do full audits of our roadways. And we're going to create heat maps where we have a lot of these big problems, and we're going to really seriously try to go after implementing some repairs to some of these areas. And so look for more of that to come. The announcement for this grant is actually just coming out. So we're definitely thinking in those terms. I just wanted to add that to the conversation as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Steve. Yeah, I hadn't heard about the SS4A grant. That's fantastic. To address your second question there, Lonnie, about Kaiser, certainly heard the concern about making sure that facility is accessible to transit. First, as part of the highway project I mentioned, we're putting in a new bike and pedestrian bridge at Chanticleer, so right near Gray Bears, and we'll go over to the Sheriff's Center. And so actually with that bridge, there'll be a transit stop it's there now, Thurber and Soquel Drive. That stop will be just about a half-mile walking distance to the proposed Kaiser facility. I did look at, whether or not they could use that pumpkin patch site that you mentioned. I think Kaiser and their developer PMB did a pretty extensive property search early on in their process and determined for a couple of reasons that site wasn't feasible, the one that you mentioned. We did actually just rezone that site, the pumpkin patch site, for mixed use. So it'll be a great opportunity for housing, for some kind of, I'd love to see a sort of village square element incorporated in there as well to take advantage both of housing and some commercial there. So I think that definitely that site has a lot of potential. Kaiser had determined that wasn't going to work for them. We've also looked, I've talked extensively to our Metro about whether or not they could run a line on Soquel Avenue. They basically feel, it could be done. It would cost about $300,000 a year. We could certainly ask Kaiser or make a condition that they pay that, but it would come out of, instead of doing improved bike lanes or other projects that we would ask Kaiser to pay into, we'd have to ask them for that instead. Moreover, even if Kaiser did pay, there is a challenge of resources at Metro. Pretty much right now, we're short 20% of our drivers. And so we've had 1,000 pass ups just in the last 6 months at UCSC because we don't have enough buses and we're not running all the buses that we used to. So question for Metro is, even if Kaiser was willing to pay for the route, would we really want to divert a bus and a driver away from one of these high use lines to one that actually we have pretty good reason to believe would not get all that much use? So looked at a Kaiser facility that was built over in the East Bay, and they actually did extend a line to that facility because it was not too far from an existing line. And it only gets about 15 riders a day. So, the better used inner city routes in our community get about 10 to 15 riders an hour. So again, probably not the best place to invest our scarce Metro resources. And of course, there are also, there's Paracruise, which will take folks directly, could take folks directly to the facility, as well as Liftline, which takes people to doctor's appointments. So I think between those three, those would probably be better options than extending a Metro line there. And again, it will be a Metro line within half a mile walk. Lonnie, do you have a follow-up question or? Okay, we'll move on then to Thomas.
Sorry, I could not unmute myself, so I had to wait till I was unmuted. Thank you. Just overall, in terms of when we look at any of these new, very large scale developments, I feel it is really irresponsible when we do not take into account the 3 E's in our community, which are equity, the environment, equity access, the environment, and economics. We, of course, need Kaiser. There's a broad spectrum of people in our community that use Kaiser, and that's an essential resource. And at the same time, Kaiser will be making a great deal of money coming to our community. And so it really is essential that we expect that they meet these same parameters that we have around equity, the environment, and access and economics. One thing about that ramp that goes across Chanticleer, I think because of the ADA ramping, the total distance is more like 1 mile to 1.5 miles. And when you're talking about a facility like Kaiser that actually meets a wide spectrum of our community, it's not a hospital, from what I understand. It's going to be a variety of services. People that, a large percentage of people that will probably not have access to vehicles. My other big concern, again, is the 730 parking spaces on that, which really lead to more driving. And in an era that we need to ensure that we're moving away from more driving and more public transportation access, there's just so many aspects of this project that I feel currently are irresponsible for us to engage. And hopefully we can find some really great solutions that might make this a more accessible, more environmentally wise program for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie. I'll just add one more note. I certainly I agree with you that Kaiser should help do their fair share in terms of equity and access to good health care in our community. The board will be considering an access to care agreement with Kaiser. That's something that we currently have with the other major medical providers in the community, like Dominican and Sutter, PAMF. And it basically says it's an agreement that helps make sure all the major providers are also helping to support patients who are on Medicare and Medi-Cal. Those patients tend to be a net loss for anyone who provides care for them. So we want to make sure that ultimately all the major providers all help that population equally. And so, I mean, we are going to get, a prerequisite of having any project would be that Kaiser sign an access to care agreement. And, we're looking at some portion of their revenues going to directly for care for folks on Medicare or Medi-Cal. And particularly because they're talking about this being, as you said, not a hospital, but a specialty care center. Those specialty services are much needed. And so we would, the way we're currently looking at the agreement is making those specialty specialists and specialty care services available to folks who maybe they get the majority of their health care through Santa Cruz Community Health or one of the other health services in our community, but they could also go to Kaiser for those specialists. So we definitely have that in mind. So thank you for bringing it up.
All right, next we have Thomas. Thomas, thank you for being so patient.
Hello, can you?
Oh my God. I'm sorry.
Hello,
Sorry, we're still getting an echo.
hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there's a bit of an echo, but it's
Okay, very good. Well, my name is Tom Fallon, and
like, I don't know if you have.
I
Oh, you've got two is the problem here. Well, you
I'll
seem
tell
like
you
you're
what.
logged on more than once.
Okay, let's see. I'd like to tell you that
Why don't you log out one of your accounts? And if not, you can also ask your question in the chat, and I'm happy to read it off that way. So for now, why don't we go to the next person who's got their hand raised?
Bob, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this, Manu. I just have a couple of comments about cars in particular. Cars are convenient. They can get you from point A to point B. If you're going to Fremont, which is what makes them versatile, and they're not going to go away for that very reason. And a lot of the dialogue this evening has been about tech people moving to the mountains, right? And they commute on Old San Jose Road. And cars have improved along with a lot of other things. Cars, you can go 80 miles an hour in a car if you're not on adaptive cruise control in a modern car and not even realize it. So something needs to change along that level. But I want to stress that cars are not the easy enemy. And we need to accept the fact that cars are going to be with us for a long time. We are shifting propulsion methods, and that's putting a stress on the electrical grid as well. The electrical grid was never built to take on this constant demand up until very recently. In many ways, the infrastructure has fallen behind the need for things like the internet, constant internet. So I think that's the dilemma that we're in. I think that Manu and others are doing really quite admirable and well with the complications that are at hand. But in my opinion, I used to commute the Hill quite regularly, and I do now even now and then. Drivers will speed to the point where it's dangerous. And I'm sure that happens on, you name the road, Highway 9, whatever the commute roads are. And maybe the answer is surveillance. Maybe that's going to be the answer to a lot of things. And Americans don't want to accept surveillance, but maybe that's the answer to speeders and reckless driving and a lot of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. It's a good point. And surveillance, definitely seems like an option at the moment. It is actually illegal to, in the state of California, to have speed tickets by camera. So there's a number
I'll be.
of cities and counties who have signed a petition asking our state legislature to pass a law that allows this. I know the first thing I looked into, hearing about these problems on SoCal San Jose Road, is if we can't have a CHP officer out there all the time, why not put a camera? But you know what? Thanks for the reminder. I'm talking to our assembly member next week, and I'll bring it up with her.
Manu, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, I'm not seeing any more. Was Thomas able to ask his question in the chat, Jamie?
No, unfortunately, I believe he signed out and has not signed back in yet, but I did send him an email just to let him know he can always email our office.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'll try to get in touch with him. We've got another question here in the live audience then. I don't think it's coming through for the online yet. There it is.
Oh, hi. In regards to Kaiser, that's a very large building. How do you project those numbers of people needing healthcare? Like you're saying that we need to build this huge healthcare facility based on the being, we're going to predict this many people are sick. How do you make that projection? And
Sure.
that's like a need.
Right. So, I mean, as a private business, Kaiser is the one that assesses the market need for their services and whether or not to, build a facility with a certain number of specialists to take on a certain number of patients. The county doesn't dictate whether they can, we look at it really from the impact to the community as far as, like I said, ensuring that our entire medical network treats everyone and that we're able to fill gaps, particularly for people who are on government insurance. And we also, of course, will look at it in terms of the traffic impacts. And so there's, in fact, a very large environmental impact report that looks at a lot of different elements of this project, but certainly traffic impacts as well. But I think you bring up a good question. It's not, this facility is by no means a done deal. And I think even, Kaiser might be reassessing whether or not it makes sense for them from a business perspective to build a facility of this size. Even like the 730 parking spaces mentioned, they might not actually build parking structure that big. They might build a smaller building. Again, this is all kind of up in the air and largely based on their own business calculus too. All right, do we have any more questions online?
We do. Tracy, I'm going to unmute you.
Yay, I'm unmuted. I feel free.
Hey, Tracy.
Hi, Manu. I wanted to, I actually had to call your office earlier today, and it seems to segue into the conversation that we're dealing with right now. If we are going to continue on with, say, we're going to bring in Kaiser and all this other stuff, we need to address the issues that we currently have as well, because it's going to impact it. Currently, right now, when SoCal Drive gets congested, well, let's put this, the freeway gets backed up, so everybody gets onto town roads, and they all impact SoCal Drive. In my area, my area by Winkle Park.
Yep.
What ends up happening is that everybody is like, we're talking many cars are using the Waze app and stuff like that, or they just happen to be in town and they know that if they go down Thurber and then across behind Winkle Park, they can jump onto Winkle and go blazing down Howe. Okay, and then they take a ride onto Dover, and then basically they've saved themselves a corner block. Okay,
Right.
so they can go ripping through everything. Now I swear to God, my third car has been hit and ran
Oof.
in the matter of just a few weeks. I am now out a total of $1,500 because it's $500 deductible every time, because these people are racing through. If we're adding more stuff like Kaiser and everything else, we really need to address the neighborhood. And I don't even care what it is. I don't care if it's speed bumps. I don't care if it's a presence. I don't care if it's strike. I don't care. But it can't continue to happen when it's already this bad. Now we're going to add another hospital or whatever it is, and people are going to be congested. They're not going to be able to, they're not patient. They're not whatever. So they go ripping through. And my roads are so old back here that we don't even have sidewalks. We have like them sidewalks in partial areas, but not in full areas. So you have to understand that people are walking their dogs and children and buggies and everything else down the middle of the street because we don't have sidewalks.
Yeah.
So, and now we've got, the latest side swipe that I got, I had an officer out this Tuesday. So just this past couple days. And as we were talking, it was 5 o'clock. And about 10 to 12 cars, absolutely in a line, were buzzing through. And the officer looked at me and he goes, "What is going on? Is there something happening?" I said, "No, it's 5 o'clock traffic and nobody wants to wait on Soquel Drive." So they zip through this area. And so I'm just saying, my issue, I've already reported it to your office and everything else. So we're going to have more conversations, but I'm just saying, if we're going to be adding and dovetailing into, say the hospitals and everything else, we need to address what's going to happen, because it's not just my little backside streets that are being affected. It's everybody else's.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that I bring it to everybody's attention. I bring it to yours. And it's important that we, when we are planning this out, that we take into consideration people's apps and ways of trying to circumvent the system or this or that, you know what I mean? Like, try to outthink the system, and it's impacting everyone else.
Totally hear you, Tracy. And I'm so sorry to hear about your car being hit 3 times in the last month. And $1,500 is a lot to pay. And the state of your neighborhood roads. Like you said, I think a lot of people are dealing with this right now.
Yeah.
The good news is I think we're about to do just about as much as we possibly could for the main arterials. Our community has won some incredibly large grants from the state. So for example, I don't know if you were on when I was talking about the highway project, but we are adding an auxiliary lane, bus on shoulder lane, and really pushing out the exterior edge of the highway to the maximum extent of the right of way. You could certainly look at, future improvements on the interior later, but that additional auxiliary lane will ultimately connect all the way from Soquel Drive, where we already did the similar project just for the kind of Morrissey section there. Essentially going to push that project first to 41st, then to State Park, and then all the way to Freedom Boulevard, where it opens up again to 3 lanes. We've won some grants of over $100 million from the state, which is, some of the largest awards statewide. Is incredible for a county that has only 0.5% of the state's population. In fact, next week we'll be celebrating the receipt of a federal mega grant, $30 million for the Aptos segment of this project. We are one of only 9 mega grants nationwide, and the only one in California. So, again, amazing
That's
work
great.
by Panetta to get us that money. And in addition to improving the highway, so hopefully that'll get things moving better on the highway, and also we'll be able to run more express buses on the highway as well. But we're also attending to Soquel Drive because we know it's a problem. I absolutely will not I would never willingly drive along Soquel at 5 p.m. as you said, in that section right in front of your house is definitely the worst. But we are putting in 21 new smart lights. Essentially, these lights will be wired together with fiber. So they'll be timed to be able to get a wave of greens, and they will absolutely be adaptive based on demand. So
That sounds great.
that will definitely improve things on Soquel. And we'll also be making some improvements so that transit can run better on Soquel Drive, so more people have that as an option. And there'll be both buffered and protected bike lanes along Soquel as well. It'll still be 2 lanes in both directions, the center turn lane, and not losing any travel lanes. But should be greatly improved. Also as a piece of this, 41st Avenue, the city of Capitola has put in some new smart lights on their side of things. Caltrans is putting in smart lights right over the section that they have over the highway, and we're linking them all together right now. So that 41st will also get better here in the next 6 months or so. And then, so improving those arterials, then we can also certainly, I'm happy to work with you to look at putting speed bumps on the neighborhood roads to make those less attractive, as we also make the arterials more attractive.
I love that approach.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you.
Most welcome. Yeah, I mean, we just, the county has, I think, I can't remember if it's what, a 13-step process or so for neighborhoods requesting speed bumps. And I've tried to help accelerate that using my list of voters and putting out a survey and getting feedback faster. We just did this for the Thurber neighborhood and would be happy to do it for Winkle Park area as well.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'll be in touch. So I don't think you're coming through, but the question is, can we apply speed bumps to Old San Jose? I think the problem is because the base speed or the average speed travel is a little higher on that road, that speed bumps could become, I mean, in a school zone. I mean, Steve, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, my main comment on that is these types of high-speed roads, we do have the option to put in, they're not bumps, they're like speed tables. They're, very large and they're flatter on the top and they're wider. There's a process to go through it. We haven't actually ever put one in on a major arterial roadway like that. That's a roadway that carries a huge amount of commute traffic, 10,000 plus cars a day. So, we'd have a lot of resistance from emergency service responders like fire, CHP. There is a process to go through. Unfortunately, what the process entails, anybody who absolutely has to drive over those things gets a vote. So it ends up being almost an unwieldy type of a vote situation because so many users are going to have to traverse that area. It's not saying it can't be done. It hasn't been done. And typically from an engineering standpoint and from a safety standpoint, we don't recommend these types of traffic control devices on these arterial roadways. But, again, it's a conversation we can have. Manu, we're happy to engage with you guys on that to see whether that's something the community wants to do. We've never actually had the idea come up on SoCal San Jose Road.
We'll definitely sit down and get all the options out on the table and see what we can do.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Okay, not seeing any more questions here in person or online. So with that, we'll bring the meeting to a close. Again, you can always reach out to our office. Best way to reach us is first.district@santacruzcounty.us. That goes to myself as well as all the analysts, and we'll be able to get you an answer as quickly as possible. Thanks everyone for joining tonight, and have a good one.